Hello, everybody. Welcome. And today we are, as just a little bit of an intro, this is part of a collaboration between Inc. and Herky, a series called Inc. Her, where we are coming out with a book next year with featuring 49 women, mostly from India. And oh my God, hold on. Sorry about that, mostly from India and some diaspora women. So the idea is that we want to tell different stories and their personal stories, their professional journeys, a lot of it geared toward inspiring women to stay economically independent and all the professional turbulences we go through, ups and downs, lessons. So it's like a no holds barred conversation, which will also become part of the book. With that, I want to introduce Pooja Dhingra, we are very proud to have her as an Inc. Fellow, just like Neha Bagaria, who's the founder of Herky. It's really wonderful. It's like your children grow up and you're actually become their friend. So I get to not only adopt them, but interview them now. And as I usually do, I'm not going to give a long bio. We are going to dive into the conversation. So you'll find out all about Pooja as we have the conversation. So, with that, Pooja, welcome. And
Thank you. Thank
so,
you for having me. I was just saying that this is feeling a little like COVID vibes again when we were doing our talks.
yes, yes, and we'll actually, just to continue on the talking about COVID, I think I always feel that there's a BC and AD, like for all of us, I think there is like before COVID and after COVID. And I was going to ask this later, but I thought, why don't we start with that? And, during COVID, we started a lot of conversations with our fellows, with people just to have independent conversations because everybody felt so confused and none of us knew what was going on. And really, it's our community that kept us, kind of engaged and alive and curious and not in despair. But it was the toughest time. So, Pooja, let's start this in a very unusual way of let's talk about the toughest time in our life and then we'll go to where it started and then we'll go to where we are going. In fact, at the time of the COVID is we all became very close. We really started talking to each other, not just in like, uh, you know, hallway conversation, but really in-depth conversations about how lonely we were feeling. I mean, for us, I think rug was pulled under our feet. I mean, no events, no nothing. We had no idea where revenues were coming. Same thing with you. Everything shut down. We just didn't know how we were going to survive month to month. So maybe let's talk about that time, Pooja, for you. You already up and running. You had these restaurants, you had cafes, and everything. And what was it like when that happened? And of course, you're young. It's not like you've been in business for the last 30 years, and you're young. You have investors. You have all these things. So, tell me a little bit about how was it like and what got you through.
Wow, straight to it.
Yeah, just straight to it, and then we'll see do all the nice
I mean,
stuff.
so, it's funny because in March of 2020, we turned 10 years old as a business. And it was like almost like a sigh of relief, like 1st of March. So it was like a sigh of relief, like it's been 10 years, most food brands don't make it this far. And like most businesses don't, like especially in the food business, don't succeed after a certain point. And I was like, wow, we've held on for so long and now we're only growing and evolving. And there were all these big plans, world domination, all of this was happening.
Yes, I remember.
And then suddenly, like it was I remember like middle of March, and then some friends were talking about, stuff they had heard. And I was like, that can never happen. Like we can't. And it's so funny because on then one of our friends told us on 19th of March or something like this that they're closing operations for 10 days till they figure out what's happening. And there was like so much uncertainty, so much panic, so much like we've never, as a food business, been shut. Like, in 10 years, we work 7 days a week. There's no like holidays as such. So there's never a point where everybody's not doing anything. And so I thought, okay, the first week I thought I said maybe it'll be a good break for everyone. We'll all just take a break. And all these WhatsApp messages started, like the virus can't live beyond 24 degrees or 25 degrees. I don't know what the temperature was. So every day I would check the weather and be like, oh my God, I hope it gets better. And we were just so clueless, right? And then slowly, when the reality of it started becoming more apparent of what is really happening, um, the point was we can't continue in the same way, that we are. All our like delivery 5 years ago, there was no quick commerce. Delivery was not what it is today. So
Absolutely, yeah.
it's not like our products could reach people. We were largely a business that survived on walk-ins and not so much on delivery. And so there was a very confusing time. It was a very dark time. I remember I was living with my parents back then, and I would be in their house all night, just like thinking, how can I turn this around? Making Excel sheets, looking at them every night and not finding any solutions, just staring at them and just weeping and crying and being like, how do I move forward from here? And that's where, you really understand what grit is, and you understand, like, okay, you don't have, yeah, we had to make a lot of hard decisions. We had to shut down our cafes, shut the savory side of our business. Our team had to become smaller, and we needed like a small amount of money to kind of make it through and come out of the other side. And I said, okay, I'm going to start teaching online. And the first workshop, I love taking in-person workshops. And the first workshop that
You to get Pooja for a whole 45 minutes without any interruptions.
sorry,
So
sorry. I
that's
think
okay. That's
it's
okay.
that
Completely
Tuesday morning and my
understandable.
bank is calling me for something. I'm not sure what, but okay. Okay. Yeah. So
Mm,
I was saying that I started doing workshops online, and my workshops earlier would only be 12 people, and I was very like in person, and that's the whole connect, and that's the whole point. And the first workshop I announced, I think I had over 250 people joining in from all over the world. So I'm like, wow, this is something that I never thought was an
yeah.
avenue or a way that this could grow, and the people joining in from Canada, from Kenya, from Australia, all over the world. And I was like, wow, this is,
Like an international dinner party.
yeah, it was so nice. And surprisingly, like, we found a way to still keep it intimate and chat and use like the Zoom chat box to really help, to really connect with people. And honestly, it was, I don't know, it was just a time like none other.
Mm,
And slowly, like, so we wrote a book. We shut down the cafe, and we were like, okay, this cafe was very loved, so why don't we write a cookbook based on it? And selling that cookbook, it was an online, like a PDF that we put out, and we made enough money to kind of restart a couple of months later, more cautiously, smaller team. And slowly, like, a lot of things came out of it. Like, we finally started doing our packaged goods. We were like, okay, if people can't come to us to have our hot chocolate, can we make a hot chocolate mix that can be delivered all over India?
yeah.
I remember the first day we announced our hot chocolate mix, we were like, internally, there were just 4, 5 of us in the team, and we were like, okay, we built a website for the first time. We didn't have a website because at that point, no food business really needed a website. So we built
Yeah.
a website, and we were like, okay, let's list this hot chocolate. We'll deliver it across India. And we added delivery charges, and it's like we added delivery charges to each packet, not knowing that if someone buys four, they're paying delivery 4 times. Um,
Yeah.
and, so many mistakes that were made. And then we were like, okay, between all of us, we were like, okay, we're taking pre-orders only for 24 hours. How many do you think we can sell? And everyone's like, 100, 200, I think, should be fine. That was the capacity we had to make. And within like 3, 4 hours, we'd already sold over 1,000 hot chocolate packets. It was crazy. Like, our website was crashing, and we're like, okay, we need to stop. And it was just such a great feeling, and like this validation that, you'll find your way, and it doesn't matter what the situation currently is. So, yeah. And then post that, the business has been evolving, and we've been changing with time. And now, again, I'm at that inflection point of where do I go from
World
here?
domination.
I don't think so anymore. I'm just like, when does it get easy, Lakshmi? When does it get easier?
It doesn't. It doesn't. You have to decide. There's no slowing down. And I think, I mean, it's so important this time to talk about is that when terrible thing, unexpected thing happens, you either create new opportunities out of it, or you say, hey, it's a sign, I'm going to end that and do something else. I mean, there are people who have done both things. There
Yeah.
are some people who said, this shit shows me how short life is. I'm just going to travel, or I'm just going to do something. Or some people have said, hey, this is a new opportunity. And I think that's when you truly find out what your community is. And for us, I think it was like, on one hand, you're being the parent, you have to make sure there's enough money in the bank. On the other hand, you're being a parent to all the kids who are lost, and like, you want to bring them all together and show that, hey, everything is okay. But on inside, you're like, oh my god, what do I do? But it is like being with grown up children, like, you share things. It's not like you have to somehow come for anybody's rescue. So in a way,
Yeah.
it was a very beautiful time for us also to discover the community and how much the community was there for each other. Like, you would call Sandy, who's a chef in Chennai, and he would call somebody else, and I would call some. I mean, it's sort of like, at the end of the day, it's truly, truly the community that matters, and what we are about ourselves. Now, talking about what we are about ourselves, now let's go back to your journey as a chef in the food business, let's say. And I mean, you talk about how you started baking when you were 6 with your aunt, your mom used to do it at home, etc. There were a lot of childhood experiences, and yet you took the law exam and went to law school. And what happened in the first week? I mean, what happened where you said, no, this is not what I'm going to do? I mean, that's a huge step at
Yeah.
18, right? To write the exam, go there, which is a very tough exam to crack. You do that and go there and say,
There was no exam, huh? I
okay,
was
oh,
just,
okay,
so
okay.
thank
I don't
you.
know. In my time, we had to give exam for
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Even to
no.
breathe, we had to give an exam.
So the thing was that, I mean, back then there was no concept of being a food entrepreneur or being a chef, especially for a girl, right? Like, you had hotel management, as it was called, and that journey was very like, you finish this and then you go to hotel. So back then there was no idea or concept. You couldn't look at anybody else's journey, or you couldn't look at somebody else and say, oh, this is the kind of life maybe I want to live. So there was no idea in my head that I could live this path. And because that wasn't there, the next logical thing was, okay, what do I want to study? And at that point, I was obsessed with a lot of like US law shows. So I was like, oh, I could be a lawyer. And we
And I said, what is it for you? Is it Law and Order, or what was the legal shows you
have the
watched?
practice.
Oh my God, yes. Dylan McDermott, right?
I was watching the practice and I was like, I could be in this show.
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah.
then, and we have some, in my family, we have some lawyers. So I was like, okay, this could be interesting. And then, as fate would have it, I wanted to go to the college I wanted to go to. I missed the entrance by 1%. And then I had to go to a college that I didn't really like or fit in. And within the
Hmm.
first 2 weeks, I was just looking around and saying, what am I doing here? Like, these books, and somewhere the back of my head, I always had this image of owning a cafe and, like, meeting people. I'm a people's person. I love interacting with people. So I was like, I don't think this is for me. And very early on, I was having like major doubts about it. And so then I went and spoke to my parents and I said, look, I don't think I can do this like 5 years. I don't know if I'm going to make it. And I'm very lucky and privileged that I have parents who are super supporting. And they were like, look, we don't mind what you do, as long as you study it. So if you want to get into hospitality and food, then study hotel management, study the business behind it, have a degree. If you have a degree, then no matter what you do, you will be fine. And so the journey started like that. So then I moved to Switzerland. I studied hospitality there, worked in hotels for a while, found my love for the pastry kitchen, walked into the pastry kitchen. I was like, this is it. Like, why, like, this clarity. moved to Paris. And then I had,
Just so everyone know, I put myself on mute because there's some construction going on outside, and we are on the fighter jet training path here in Bangalore. So suddenly you'll hear a huge plane going on the sky. So I just wanted to tell the audience that's why I'm on mute, just so you don't hear flights and construction.
okay, sorry. Yeah. And then it was Paris, and it was, I was a 21-year-old living there, eating, breathing, living. I think that city had such an impact on me that it's been 15 years, and everything I do still draws from that year that I spent there.
And you always talk about there was a magical moment, a particular dessert moment where you said, "This is what I want."
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, so when I was in Paris, I was at a party with the French friends, and they were like, "Have you tried a macaroon? Have you tried a macaroon?" And I was like, "No, what is it?" And they were like, "You are a pastry student in Paris. How could you have not tried it?" And close to where I live, there was a shop by a very famous chef called Pierre Hermé, who's also known as the Picasso of pastry. And they said, "Why don't you go try what he does?" And I remember, standing in line, looking at this beautiful case, looking at the little macaroons, which at that point I was like, these look like little burgers. And very expensive, bought one, stood outside. I The flavor was called mogador, which is a passion fruit and milk chocolate, and had a bite. And I was like, wow, it was just like the mix of flavors and the texture. It was soft, but still crunchy. It was, sweet and a little bit sour and acidic. I was like, why haven't I had this before?
Yeah.
And then my journey and love for macaron started from there.
So, to be cheesy, it was like love at first bite or something like
Yeah, yeah. I mean, looking back at it
that.
now, when you put it in perspective, you're like, yeah, but back then it was just like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then now you're called the macaroon queen of India, and you brought macaroons to India, and you decided to pursue that. But it's one thing to do macaroons in, Paris. It's another thing to do it in Mumbai. We have the heat, we have this, we have that, and are the ingredients right or not? Because one thing the foodies I know are particular about is the ingredients, right? Where does the flour come from? Where does this come from? Where does the fruit come from? So how were you able to master that in India?
I think I had a lot of challenges. When you study in France and then you come back to India, the ingredients are definitely different. The temperature is different. The humidity is different. So, and back then, this is 15 years ago, you didn't get all the ingredients you get today. You didn't have access to all the supplies. Today, if you start a bakery in India, right today, you can get everything that you would get internationally.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, even getting like good quality chocolate was an issue, and it was so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a lot of time to experiment, to work a lot of failed recipes that didn't work. And then I was like, this is why it's not available here yet, because it's very
Yes.
hard to make. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then slowly, like it worked. And we at that point, Lakshmi, there was no, when I think about it now, I'm like, wow, there was no WhatsApp didn't exist.
Correct.
There was no Instagram. There was, like when you think about doing, I mean, Swiggy and Zomato and all the forget, but there was like, how did you manage to run a business? Uh,
Correct.
so we've seen those days, and I feel like so old now talking like that. But
Right. I know.
but
I know.
but like that's how it was. So basically, what I did was I would literally go wherever I could. So every event, every like at that point, exhibitions were a big thing. So every different exhibition that was happening, I would go put up a stall, do free tastings, because I knew that word of mouth for food really works best.
Mm-hmm.
If someone likes something, they're going to recommend it to their friends and family, and that's how we kind of got the ball rolling. My only thing was I just got to get people to taste it, because I know once they taste it, they like it, and then
Yeah.
then I'll be good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's been amazing to watch your journey. I mean, I came in maybe halfway through that journey watching you, but it's sort of now every star, everybody, if they, like, unless you have a Pooja Dhingra cake or a macaron, the party is not complete. And what's really interesting for me to see your evolution as a leader, from someone you started your business when you're 23, you never thought of going and apprenticing somewhere or what. You just came to India and said, I'm starting a business. You just became an entrepreneur without knowing much about it, and you learned everything on the job. And I remember, I mean, there were ups and downs of just at what valuation do I take the money, and what do I take, and who are my investors, and who do I say yes to. I mean, there are so many things as a new entrepreneur. So now looking back, if someone were to start something, what would you tell them? Do you wish that, I mean, you're a creator and the accountant and the business development person and the investor relation. I mean, you are like a one woman show. Do you wish you had a co-founder who could take part of it? Or like if you were to start today,
Yeah.
same 23-year-old, what would you tell about?
I mean, most definitely. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, I think about it all the time. Even today, I'm putting it out there. I would love to have a co-founder, right? Because it gets extremely exhausting and very lonely, and you're making decisions all by yourself. And you're doing, like you said, you're doing all different aspects of the business because you have to. You're not really the best person to do it. You're not very good at the job, but you just have to learn how to do it. And it's taken me many, many years to figure out okay, I'm not interested in this and I don't like doing it, but I know that for my business I have to learn how to do it and I'll do it. Like I think as an entrepreneur, everyone has that kind of hustle and grit, and they're like, okay, we'll figure it out. So
Mhm.
it's not hard to figure it out, but then you're spending time and energy which could be spent on things that you're really good at,
Yeah.
that suffer and that take a back seat because all your time and energy is going into problem solving and firefighting things with
Mhm.
someone far better than you would be capable of dealing with those
Correct.
things. So I deal with that. I mean, I've dealt with that for a long time and I still do.
Mhm.
Um, and it's good to have the awareness of it. I think that, as an entrepreneur as well, know what your skill sets really are. Find someone with complementary skill sets.
Correct.
Find
Yeah.
someone who can do the things that you don't like to do. I think
Yeah.
that's where it stems from. So
Yeah.
I wish, like I really do wish that I did have a co-founder, someone who understood business better, someone who understood the finances better, because I feel like our trajectory would have been very different. Because
Mhm.
like I've spoken about this in the past as well. Like I didn't have much of a finance outlook early on. And now when I think about it, I'm like, I could have made so much money, you know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
didn't because that was not the goalpost, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing we should touch upon. Like, why is that
Correct.
not a goal?
Yeah.
Why wasn't that a goalpost? I was
Correct. Yeah.
talking to the comedian Zarna Garg, and we were having this conversation, and she's like, "I wish women in." I was like, "What advice could you give women in business?" And she's like, "I would want women in business to use the M word more." She's like,
Right. Yeah.
"Money, because we don't talk
Yeah.
about it, and culturally, especially, she's like around the world as well, but in India specifically, right? Like we don't talk about money. We don't, I grew up not."
Especially women, I mean, it's a
Especially
very, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I just those are some of the things that if someone was starting out today, I would say one, don't do it alone, get somebody who can take the load off, and two, like really like be finance first, no matter what it is. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's also, I think one of the other things I learned is it's okay to want money because it gives you the freedom,
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it's sort
that's
of,
why we're doing this.
yeah,
Why else are we doing this? Like that's the thing.
yeah.
You feel like if you're doing something that's out of your, and this is how I used to feel. I used to have guilt because I'm like, oh, I'm doing this if it's my passion and I love doing it. Then
Mhm.
like asking for this amount or that amount. No, like this,
Yeah.
like
Absolutely. I think if you don't put a price on yourself, somebody else will, and that'll be disappointing to you. I think you need to know what you're, and this is the biggest lesson I have learned is you have to be okay with what you ask for yourself, not anybody else. People are willing to pay what's right, but you have to put out there. I mean, for the longest time, I mean, I'm much older than you, and for the longest time, I'm like, yeah, whatever is fine. Just do it for free. I never thought, I never, my dad used to joke that I gave Lakshmi in your name, so don't ask for it in kind. So, but it's sort of, it is something you have to want and say, hey, I want this because that'll give me the freedom to do what I want. And even when you had to make decisions, I want to talk a little bit about that. Of sometimes you have to shut down what you love. Like I knew the cafe like Le 15 in Colaba, which is like, I still remember Manvendra. I would come, he would eat like three eggs Benedict, and I would have two eggs Florentine. I mean, like that would be like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The food was so good there, and the ambience and everything was so great. But tell me a little bit about when you have to make those hard decisions of, I have to shut something I love. Like, what is it? How do you, and how do you integrate it? And you got to have, like, you talk about work life harmony. It's not work life balance. It's never a balance, but it's somehow keeping it harmonious of these extremely tough decisions
Yeah.
that rip your heart out, and at the same time you got to be positive and keep moving forward. So tell a little bit about that balance.
I mean, we briefly spoke about it, was like to find the opportunity in a crisis.
Yeah.
I think back then it was, I was like, okay, this is a crisis, but I'm sure there's an opportunity here. So while the decision was heartbreaking and it was really tough, we were like, how can we use this to ensure that, like the decision that we're making is, we do justice to it. So we're like, where is the opportunity here? Yeah, our back is against the wall, and we have to make a really hard decision that none of us wanted to do, but we had to shut it down. And I'm like, okay, what can we do beyond this? So, like, like you had favorite dishes from the cafe. There's so many people who had their favorites. And we're like, okay, we have all the recipes. Our chefs are, working from home. What is it that they can do? Can we put together? We have all the pictures. Can we test the recipes? Can we make a book? Can we sell the furniture from the cafe so people can keep it? There's still today, I have people who send me pictures of plates that they use that we shipped out to them, or artwork from the cafe, of everything. So I think it's important in life to really realize that hardships and hard decisions will always come your way. And for me, how I deal with it is, first I cry. So I get that out of my system. And it's almost like, okay, now you're done. You have nothing else that you can do here. Like, you have to figure out a way out of this. You can't be sobbing and be in this situation the whole time. You have to, like, pick yourself up and say, what is the next best thing? And I think that's where all the my mom is very spiritual, and a lot of the spirituality part comes in, and listening to Oprah a lot and all of that, right? Like, when you're like, when I can't see the whole staircase, I just know what the next best thing is. And I think for me, that's always been the thing. When things feel overwhelming, or you feel like it's so challenging and I don't know what the path ahead of me looks like, it was just like, okay, what do I have now, and what's the next best decision that I can make? And I think I rode myself through that time by just taking one decision that seemed right, and then the other, and then the other. So I think, like, that's what really helped me then.
There are suggestions. Let's take some questions from people. There are suggestions about there's Bangalore Lit Fest. There's all kinds of stuff where you can talk about your book. We'll definitely, I'll talk to Ravi and talk about that. There's a question about what advice would you give an aspiring baker and food entrepreneur, and also how do you keep your menu keep innovating the menu. So let's talk a little bit about the business of food and what
Yeah.
advice you have, and how do you keep it going? How do you keep it current?
I think for advice, I would say the same thing. I said, really find what you are good at, find your niche, test it out. The good thing about the bakery business is that you don't really need a large capital or place to start. So start small, test it out with your friends and family, and see what's the feedback you get, and then go beyond that circle. And if there is potential there, then I think that then there's, I said, then the next step comes after that. I do think that when I started, the market was a lot less crowded than it is today. So today, especially after COVID, everyone's a home baker, everyone is baking, everyone is selling. There's competition everywhere. So be aware of that, and then really ask yourself, what is it that you're doing different that will stand out, that somebody will want to have? Because there's just too much out there that people have a choice, and that's one aspect of it. And the other aspect is some people are choosing not to have as much sugar, so you're really
Yeah.
struggling between that. And I face this too.
Right.
So I think that it's important to kind of understand why you're doing it, have a plan, have someone, create a business plan for you. What kind of, starting does it make more sense to start your own business? Does it make more sense to get experience and work in different places under chefs for some time and then do your own thing? For me, unfortunately, when I came, you said that I just came back and started. There was nothing else for me to do, Lakshmi. When I came
Yeah.
back, there were no opportunities to work anywhere. Like there were only the five-star hotels that had bakeries, and they would normally hire just from, within their schools. And there were no, like, other than Theobroma that had one store in Colaba, there were no many standalone patisseries or bakeries in the city. So there was nowhere for me to go and learn or, adapt and see how things worked here. So I just had to jump and do my own thing. So right now you have the opportunity. I think starting your own business is very hard. I would recommend like working in a kitchen first, um, knowing what you really want to do, and then do it. They say like youth is inexperience is great because you just jump into it. If you were to tell me today, after everything I know, if would do it all over again, I would really have to think hard about that.
You would say, let me go work with the Pooja Dhingra for a while,
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah,
start
yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah, 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 yeah.
No, and also I want to point out that you really zoned in on one thing and mastered it. You said, okay, I'm going to do macarons and maybe cupcakes. I don't know if you started with a whole bunch of things, but to specialize in one thing and then expand to different things. On day one, you didn't have a Le 15 cafe that was serving all these things, etc. You become good in one thing and then expand to others. I want to touch upon a little bit about innovation as well as the thing you talked about. People are going gluten free, sugar free, and all these kinds of stuff. Have you seen a change in your product offerings now? Is there more percentage of what you do sugar free, or is more percentage of it gluten free? I mean, are you seeing a big change?
So for us, luckily, macaroons are gluten free, so we make them with almond flour, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But we do, of course, we still do. We have people who have dietary restrictions, and we try to fulfill them on our menu as such. We're still an indulgent brand, so we don't have that many offerings that are alternative. But it's something that we've been deeply thinking about, like, how do we? What does the next decade look like? What are people's eating habits going to be like? Where is it that we can really add value? So this is a conversation that's ongoing. We do experiments, we figure out, we do little market research, and we test it out. We test out our ideas. But I think you have to change with time as well, and you have to kind of mold and adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And we find ourselves doing that also.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question about innovation is that I don't know. I think it's been 15 years, so I've probably done every flavor of macaroon that you could ever imagine, and
Mm-hmm.
every different, variation of it. But
Yeah.
inspiration still strikes, and it's still,
Yeah.
and if it's something that you're passionate about, I guess you find a way to make it work, and that's the exciting part. And for me, that's always been the easiest part of the puzzle. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, this is what I'm really good at. Like today, you tell me to
Yeah.
make 10 menus, I'll sit and do it. That's easy. But if you have to tell me to look at the P&L and find this, I was like, okay, I need some help with that. So,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I think that's really like where strength lies. So I think innovation comes from studying things, learning, looking at what's happening around the world, speaking to your customers, really knowing what they want, and yeah, just having fun also, because at the end of the day, we're in the business of joy.
And there's some questions about, is there a good school to go to here, or should I go to a school, or should I start on my own? That actually, I've been thinking one thing is like, have you thought about? I mean, you go to do a Cordon Bleu, you have to go to Paris. I mean, there's nothing in India that's of that stature. Have you ever thought of starting anything?
That's my dad's dream, actually. And,
Yeah.
he keeps telling me, he's like, let's do it, let's do it. But I just feel so exhausted and I think like starting anything right now. But if I were to find a good partner to do it, I would love to do that. Yeah, I would love to start an
Yeah.
academy. Um, there are so many now. Like again, when I went to study, there was no like course, no schools offering only a pastry course, but so much has changed in the last decade. So now you have like schools in you have Lavon in Bangalore, you have so many in Delhi, you have schools that have like tie-ups with international schools that have opened all across the country. So there's many opportunities here. So in today's day and age, I don't think it's important to go anywhere to study, anywhere else to study. I do think it's important to work in different kitchens. I do think it's important to learn from different chefs.
Mhm,
And if you have the opportunity to travel and see what's happening in the world, I think like that's a good like experience for someone. But
mhm.
to actually go and study, it's something you can do without also.
Yeah, yeah. And there are, one of the questions is a question I had any plans to open in Bangalore or
Maybe we should do a pop-up soon, huh?
Yes, that'll be amazing. That'll be amazing. So everybody keep your ears open. Maybe you, me, and Neha together will do a pop-up
Yeah.
of you here. And so there are, just to wrap up, Pooja, just tell us about what are your future plans? I know it's exhausting. I mean, it's so funny. Our journey started around the same time, in 2010, and here we are 15 years later. Do you keep thinking about? Do you ever want to take a break? Do you have a team that can run on its own so you can go away for a month and nothing would fall through the cracks? Because you had a, podcast. You're one of the influencers on Instagram. I don't know, you like seem to be popping out a book every few months, and so there's
No.
just so much going on in your life that where is the harmony bit of it?
I think that I've really found some balance within in the last 2, 3 years, and decided to put myself, my needs also before anything else that I do. I found sport to be a great way to achieve that. So I do these races called High Rocks that I've been doing, since I
Okay.
started training for since the last year. I'm training for
What
the
is that? Tell
it's
me.
it's a fitness race that combines cardio and a bunch of different exercises. It's quite famous around the world, and it's just come to India.
Wow. Uh-huh.
I'm training for the Bangkok Half Marathon that's in November.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so
Okay.
for me, it's been very important to find things outside of what I do for a living to give me that harmony in some sort, in some way, and then I can bring back that energy and balance and go back to work. So the ability to have that, like for me to work out every morning and then get to work and then spend like I don't burn myself out like I used to when I was younger.
Yeah.
The
You're
goal
still
was
young, but yeah, maybe when you were younger.
I'm going to be 39 on Monday, Lakshmi. I'm not. I just look like a baby.
You don't get any sympathy from me because my number is so much higher.
Yeah. No, so I think it was important. It's an important decision to also make as what you want your life to be like and what are you willing to change for that, right? Like if it's going to be go, 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 go all the time, which I did, my whole youth was that, it was high adrenaline, rush, problem solving, fixing. And then at some point you're like, I just got to take a breath and just be where I'm at and see what I can do from here. And so that's where I'm at. That's why when you said world domination again, I said, I don't know. We'll see. Right now, I'm back to that phase of what's the next best step, and then we'll
Yeah,
take it from there. So I
yeah,
can
yeah.
see about what's going to happen up until December, and then we'll figure what comes next.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is amazing. It is beautiful actually when life comes a full circle and you realize that you're chasing things to buy things you don't need to
Yeah.
please people who don't matter. And
Yeah.
so if you have your 10 people that matter to you and you have a good life getting up every morning and don't need to worry about having a food on the table, it's good enough. So anyway, thank you so much for your time and all the audience for your participation and all your questions. And we'll continue the conversation, Pooja, because you're always evolving, and I'm sure in a few months there'll be a different story. So best of luck in the half marathon and
Thank you.
everything. But you look great, and it's always wonderful to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hey,
Bye. Bye, everyone. Hey,
bye.
wait, hold on a minute. I think
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Lakshmi ma'am. Let's just hold on for a minute for a picture on the count of three, two, one. Smile, ladies. Thank you very much. I got a good one. Thank you, everyone, those who have joined and have been involved in the conversation. Thank you very much, Pooja and Lakshmi ma'am, for this wonderful insights. Looking forward for a pop-up in Bangalore very, very soon,
Yes.
Pooja.
yes. Okay. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day.